Okay, continuing on with the personal history journal. Bottom of page 80, development and career. So it asks, what were the conditions you grew up in? Did you have enough money, food, clothing? Was it safe? Please describe each location you lived in up to the age of 18. So this question is asking them about those formative years, the first 18 years of life where you go through lots of different phases of development. And so whatever happened back then tends to be rolled into who your client is today, the resources and challenges that they bring along with them. And so it's just useful to get to know how they grew up and what it was like, and what they've kept as a result of those years. Next question is asking them to describe their education history. This is useful because you want to know what sort of educational work ethic they're bringing into their coaching experience. Are they a reader? Are they willing to study something? Are they good at learning things? Are they, someone who works with their hands, or somebody who works conceptually? Like, what are they bringing to the table in terms of their learning capabilities and learning motivations, and even subject matter that they might be an expert in, or subject matter that they, are just clueless about. It can be helpful so that like how to make referrals, whether or not to make a referral to a book, or the things that they're likely to do as homework that can help them with whatever the problem is. Next question, what is your occupation? What do you like or dislike about it? Again, just background information that helps you to understand what they gravitate towards, what they're repelled by, the skill sets that they have, and just how generally happy they are with their work. I mean, we spend a lot of our lives at work, and so if you hate it, that tells you a lot about that person. You might want to know why they're still doing it. If you love it, well, that tells you something about the person too. What interests or hobbies bring you joy? What do you like about them? Here we're wanting to check to see how well-rounded they are. Do they have a life outside of work? Do they have things that they do to recharge their batteries? That can be a huge asset if they're dealing with some kind of a problem. If they don't have any kind of interests or hobbies that bring them joy, then that's a real fruitful area to discuss with them. Could be something they used to do, but they just don't do it anymore. And if possible, maybe they can work that back in as a result of some of their coaching. It's difficult to be constantly dealing with problems and challenges. You got to have something that recharges your battery, that brings you joy, that brings you peace, something that you look forward to, keeps you emotionally regulated, and gives you some shock absorbers to deal with the stressors of life. Next question is, do you now or have you in the past used drugs or alcohol? What kind? How much? This can be very relevant. How healthy are they? Was there a period in the past where they were unhealthy and they were using lots of drugs and alcohol? What kind of effect did that have on them? All kinds of questions you could ask about that period of somebody's life, whether they used, didn't use, just relevant to know. If they never used, then okay, no big deal, move on. And you might want to find out why. Maybe somebody else they know used and that kind of scared them off, and that would be interesting information to know, and see if that has an impact on their overall story. Next question there, top of page 82, it says, for clients who have asked for spirituality to be part of their coaching experience, please describe your spiritual history. So usually in the intake form, you would have a question that asks, do you have a spiritual background? And do you want that to be a part of your coaching experience? I know we have that question here at the Forward Foundation in our intake form. You want to respect the client's wishes here. If they have a faith background, they want that to be a part of their coaching experience, great, you can draw from it, it's a resource. If they don't have a faith background and aren't interested at all in that, then to stay away from that topic. Doesn't mean that you're never going to get to talk about it. Could be that as the coaching relationship goes on, they become curious about spiritual things, and that's fine if they open the door to talk about that. If that's a shut door for them, then I would say respect that. You can still do your faith by showing up and reflecting Christ to them in the way you interact. And here at the Forward Foundation, that's how we gauge success. We don't gauge it by, how many people pray to prayer. It's wonderful if someone begins a faith journey with us, but that's not how we gauge our success, because we don't feel like we're in control of that. We do our part. We love people well. We do our faith. We gauge our success by how many hours in a week did we show up, or in a year did we show up and do our faith well. That's what we gauge our success by. So I just encourage you to have a thought about that if that's something that you've grappled with in the past. So if they do have a spiritual history, though, you want to know about it. How much of a resource is it? Are there areas that still need to be developed, and how can you help them grow in that area? Last question in this section is, did you ever have any anxiety issues as a child regarding school or friends? If so, tell me about it. Again, this is kind of diagnostic about, was there bullying? Was there abuse at home or at the hands of a teacher or someone else where that made school just really difficult? And if that's the case, you want to know, how deep are those wounds, and do we need to enlist some other help in order to address that period of their life and some of the wounds that they still carry maybe from that time in their life. Sometimes people have already addressed it. Sometimes it happened, but they've found a way to move past it. But if they're still struggling, you want to connect them with help for that area of their life so they can get some closure and be fully present for the work that you're doing with them in the present. Okay, so that is the end of that section. And let's go ahead and continue on into the relational wounds section. Now, this section is very similar to the inventory process in the 12-step recovery community. And this is really difficult work to do if somebody has a lot of, heavy relational wounds from the past. In fact, this is kind of when the first wave of dropouts occurs in a 12-step recovery group, because it can be very difficult. And sometimes people don't want to look at this. Incidentally, in 12-step recovery, a lot of the cause of addiction is conceptualized as a relational problem, broken relationship with God, with the self, and with others. And the idea is that if we can fix those relational disconnects or those relational wounds, then that can remove the need for someone to cope with a substance addiction or a behavioral addiction. So, relational wounds, very important. And we will have a whole section later on in the course where we talk about forgiveness, amends, and reconciliation, really breaking down the components of reconciliation, and so that you can understand and help your clients to understand what's required for relationships to be reconciled and what steps they can take to do their part. A broken relationship is a two-person thing. Both people have to do their parts in order to achieve reconciliation. And, the terms are often kind of misunderstood and conflated in ways that are not helpful. So we'll break that down quite a lot in the course in future future sessions. But for now, we're going to look at the first page here on page 83 is about people that you have hurt, and then the next page is on people who have hurt you. And what you want to know is, how did they hurt you in the past, or who did you hurt? How did it affect you at the time? How does it affect you today? And have you done anything to address it? In the case of people you've hurt, have you made amends? In the case of people who have hurt you, have you offered forgiveness? And or forgiven? I shouldn't say offered forgiveness, because you can forgive somebody without ever talking to them. But again, we'll go into that in a future session. So that sums up the relational problems section. And then the final step in the history journal is taking a look at everything that you have talked about, discussed, shared during the history form process, and putting that together with the initial goal, problem, challenge, bit of adversity that they've presented to you with. Is there anything that you want to change about your goals for coaching? And when you ask this, often, it's kind of like the whole tip of the iceberg thing. Like, the initial goal is usually the tip of the iceberg, and what you've uncovered in the personal history journal process, winds up being the mountain that's supporting that tip of the iceberg. And so, now you've had an opportunity to get a 30,000 foot view of their life, and you can see kind of the whole thing. And often that initial goal will change, become bigger, or maybe shift entirely to addressing, that whole picture. So always good to hold fire in the beginning of the coaching relationship. Don't go barking up the wrong tree before you've taken that 30,000 foot view. And also, as you're going through the history form, and this is very important, your client will reveal things that you think are, really important. And you'll be starting to, formulate these interpretations or these hypotheses about what might really be going on for your client and why this problem is so resistant to change. But please do yourself a favor, do your client a favor, resist, drilling down too deep into any one issue before you get that entire 30,000 foot view. It's real easy to get sucked into one particular issue. You start putting interpretations or hypotheses on a situation. Your client is resistant because you still don't know the whole picture, but they do, and it can breach the relationship, and you can wind up, really wasting a whole session, drilling down into something a bit prematurely. So resist that temptation, get the 30,000 foot overview, then circle back and ask the client if there's anything that they want to change about their goals for coaching in light of the history that you've covered. Proper IV them through the whole history form. Let them give a full telling of the context that they're sitting in, and it will really serve you well. And moving forward, you'll have a deeper relationship and a much better understanding of your client and the various dynamics that are at play in their life. Okay, so that is the personal history journal form, and next we are going to talk about the personal history journal exercise, and so I will explain that to you in the next video. All right, see you there.